I mean, Joe Biden, we could spend all day playing sound bites of him saying Ukraine really needs to root out corruption. They really need to root out corruption. And he was the point person for the Obama administration on making sure that happened. Meanwhile, his son is running around trying to run cover for one of the most apparently corrupt organizations there.
Yeah, and their argument at the time, not at the time, but because of the time, this, as you noted, was not really covered with the sort of degree of intensity that you would typically think that like a high level conflict of interest scandal involving a top U.S. official would be. But after the fact, when this became an issue, the Biden folks' argument was, Joe Biden wasn't aware of this. He wasn't aware of what his son was doing beyond saying, beyond being alerted by news stories that he had joined the board and telling him, I hope you know what you're doing. Well, we see from this CIA, memo where the Biden folks are telling the CIA not to disseminate a memo that really does point out this sort of conflict of interest here, or at least the double standard and the perception of a double standard that no, in fact, they were aware of this, and Joe Biden was aware of this, and he didn't want others in his government to be made aware of it. So, whether or not he was actively involved in pushing out a prosecutor because it would benefit his son or his son's client, or whether it just so happened that it benefited the Burisma, you can't argue that he wasn't aware of this potential conflict of interest. And even if you could argue it,
he did. Wait, hold that thought. He did argue it many times. Just as a refresher for the audience, Hannity Show put together this montage back in the day, SOT 55.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. And what I will do is the same thing we did in our administration. There will be an absolute wall between personal and private and the government.
Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business dealings?
Yes, I stand by that statement. I did not know he was on the board of that company. I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine.
Did you lie about never speaking with Hunter? No, I didn't. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, so clearly he did know that Hunter was on the board of this company, and the people around him knew, and the people around him, and possibly himself, did not want others in the government to be sort of aware of this and sort of focused on it as a potential problem that undercut the U.S.'s effort to fight corruption around the world. The other thing that's sort of notable on that front is this memo that was circulated, or that they attempted to circulate, that the Biden folks blocked from circulating, came right as this effort by Biden to force out the prosecutor was heating up, and as Blue Star's effort to kind of get the U.S. to back away from the prosecution was really at its apex. So this was the moment when people in the government should have been aware of this. And in fact, we do know that there were some people in the government who were aware of it and were deeply troubled by it and tried to flag it for the vice president himself. And we're told that he just doesn't want to hear it right now. At the time, I mean, I'm not making light of this. At the time, his older son, Beau, was fighting brain cancer that ultimately cost him his life. And so, there is, I guess, a human argument, and you could understand why he wouldn't want to be troubled with what his other son was doing. But it implicated U.S. foreign policy and the ability of the U.S. to take the moral high ground in calling out and fighting corruption, which was, again, a key part of the Biden doctrine in foreign policy.
Yeah, you have to do your job. You're the vice president of the United States. It's very sad, the personal tragedy that happened with Beau Biden, but you have to do your job. That's not a job you can phone in. So if you need to take a leave of absence because of, a massive health problem in your family, then that's what you do. But you don't just say, don't bother me with massive corruption my other son is engaged in that's compromising the United States of America. Do you think this is why, when you started to report this story, more aggressively or at all, because few were, in 2019, they came at you so hard. It's very normal to see hit pieces like that on MSNBC against people like me. It's not normal to see it against people like you. But obviously you struck a nerve.
Yeah, I think that they recognized that this was a real issue and one that they wanted to get ahead of. And it wasn't just them coming after me or other reporters. I mean, we saw it most acutely with the Hunter Biden laptop. And when the New York Post wrote about it in the run up to the 2020 election, the way that the Biden campaign was able to marshal all these former intelligence officials to essentially shout it down and encourage successfully the social media companies to suppress the spread of the link to the New York Post story and any other reporting or commentary about the Hunter Biden laptop really does show the degree to which they recognize that this was a problem, even as they sort of pretended and tried to brush it off as like, oh, no, this is either Russian disinformation or this is like Rudy Giuliani spin. And, you know, to the point that I was trying to make, maybe not super articulately in that clip that you played from MSNBC, was that Rudy was, in fact, kind of muddying the waters in a way that made it more difficult to discern what the facts were and what the real problems were with having, a close family member of the former vice president and potential future president, working for corrupt, interests that the U.S. government had determined were corrupt in places that were of critical geopolitical importance to U.S. national security priorities.
Okay, but now I have it on very good authority that it's only the current president who targets his media foes and folks in the media who make him unhappy. I seem to be gleaning that he wasn't the very first to do this, Ken.
I mean, it's a different approach. I take your point, but yes, the Bidens were effective, and maybe there is something to be said for the idea that they were, the Democrats are more accustomed to being able to work with the media and therefore taking a less adversarial, publicly adversarial approach and sort of working the back channels. But here was an example where the effort to work the back channels, because they did, work to sort of shape our coverage and maybe discourage our coverage before it ran. And then after it ran, they reacted in this very aggressive way that you saw play out there with that digital ad. Did
you ever get rattled? Did you ever think, oh, God, because the book reports that, what's her name, Kate Bedingfield, she wrote a separate letter to the executive editor of the New York Times accusing you of an egregious act of journalistic malpractice, spreading Russian propaganda. That's their favorite go-to. Then the Biden team provided the letter to a CNN reporter who published it, Andrew Bates, who literally lied every other sentence. Another Biden aide blasted your reporting on Hunter's work for Burisma as historic malpractice and then called you a coward. Then we saw that Biden campaign produce that video that we just played impugning you by name. You write in the book, this is the type of media targeting for which Trump rightly drew criticism lately. To me, as a reporter, this would tell you you're right over the target. But I don't know. Was the New York Times rattled at all by this?
The New York Times definitely had my back, and the executive editor at the time, Dean Baquet, publicly defended, my reporting and me, and sort of justified or validated the reporting as being significant and something that we were going to continue, and we did continue it. And it was interesting because I think much of the mainstream media either sort of shied away from it or was more measured in their approach to it. And of course, that's changed quite a bit after Biden dropped out of the race, and Democrats sort of blamed him for costing them a chance at beating Trump in 2024. And now it seems as if there's much more of an appetite to scrutinize the Bidens.
Mm-hmm. Well, good for you for doing exactly that. I want to talk about what happened in Romania, but let's just take a quick break first, and we'll be back with Ken Vogel. The book is Devil's Advocate. Check it out. You can pre-order it right now. A lot of juicy stuff in there, and you should know about it. Why the hell should we be paying for this kind of corruption going on by these officials who are glomming on to the person who's actually in power, and which officials are allowing it? Did you know gold is up around 40% this year? That's not speculation, it's reality. And if a portion of your savings is not diversified into gold, you are missing the boat. Here are the facts. Inflation is still too high. The US dollar is still too weak. And the government debt is still growing. This is why central banks are flocking to gold. They're the ones driving prices up to record highs. But it's not too late to buy gold from Birch Gold Group and get in the door now. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into one in gold. You don't pay a penny out of pocket. Just text MK to 989898 and claim your free info kit. There's no obligation, just useful information. The best indicator of the future is the past, and gold has historically been a safe haven. Text MK to 989898 right now to claim your free info kit on gold. MK to 989898. Protect your future today with Birch Gold. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.